Hello, America. Welcome to the Voice of Freedom Radio Network, the voice of rural America, and to the State of Jefferson movement, which gives you liberty and freedom. Our studios are located in Alturas, California, right in the heart of Modoc County. Our environmental message is the 3 C's plan: clean air, clean water, and yes, common sense. We cherish our Constitution, Declaration of Independence, and will not give up our God guns, property rights, or any of our freedoms. You can hear our radio programs on this radio station every Saturday at 12 noon, right after rush. Or you can visit our website, thevoiceoffreedomradio.com, to keep you informed. I am Doug.
And I am Ross.
And I'm Anthony.
Well, Tony,
Yeah.
you know there's a little lady down in around Eagle Lake in Lassen County. And she was participating in some of the things that we had on our program.
Yeah, she sent a request for names. I know, I remember.
Well, she called the house at the studio here and mentioned the fact is that wanted to thank you. So we just want to let her know.
Well, I want to thank her. It's very kind of her to do that. And I want to encourage everybody to participate. That's what it's all about.
Tony, what was what did you have on your mind there? We was discussing something there that was pretty important. What do you got to say?
Well, Doug, I really...
Remember, this is this is family radio. Remember that? I had to say that, folks, because before we went on this Saturday, he was wound up like a banty rooster in a house full of banty hens.
Now who's concerned with the programming language? Okay, look, I really think we're at a pivotal point in history, Doug, and I think you'll agree, Ross.
I do, wholeheartedly.
I'm reminded of a trip I made to the Grand Canyon once, and I don't know if anyone else in the listening audience, I suspect you have, visited that North Rim and stood on the edge and looked down into that canyon. It's pretty deep, more than a mile down. I don't remember the numbers.
Closer to the edge, the scarier it gets.
Well, I got a serious case of acrophobia. There's your word for the day, acrophobia.
What he really means, folks, is his belt buckle is hanging over the edge.
What it means is that I got to creep up on the edge. I got to make sure I got a safety rope just to get within 10 feet of the edge. That's what it means. But the reason I bring that up is because I think we as a nation, and those of us who live in Modoc County and in all the northern counties in California, probably all the state of California as well, we're all standing on the edge of a figurative precipice, just like that edge of the Grand Canyon there on the North Rim. We're right up on the edge. And we're standing there looking over into the abyss. Our country is teetering on the edge of chaos. This election is turning into a slugfest, which is a better thing than an actual revolution, but it's confusing a lot of people. And I think we're living in a watershed moment in time, Doug.
You better believe that.
It's going to go one of two ways, and it's going to happen pretty fast. First way it could go is people could step up, and we're seeing this in the political process, Ross.
We are.
People are stepping up, and they could do the right thing, and we can save the country, and we can back away from the edge, and somewhere down the road, the historians are going to say, they actually did the right thing. They saved the country. That's one way we can go. The other way is to do nothing.
Well,
The other way is to make some bad choices and watch everybody go over the edge. Have you ever seen those base jumpers? You know, they get on the edge of the Grand Canyon and they jump off and they skydive and they fall for hundreds, thousands of feet before they open their parachute. Only we got no parachute, folks.
This is a real thing.
If we go over the edge, we'll go all the way to the bottom, and that'll be the end of the United States of America.
as
that'll-
we know it.
That'll be the end of California, and that'll be the end of Modoc County. Now, my point is, how is history going to remember us? Is history going to look at us and say, they saved their bacon, they pulled back from the edge, they saw the abyss, they feared it, and they corrected their course? Or are they going to say, those stupid people just stood there and did nothing
Walked
wa-
off the edge.
and watched it all go away?
Well, Anthony, you couldn't have said it better. In order to maintain the United States of America that we seniors remember very well,
Right.
we need to do an about face. We need to move away from that precipice, as Anthony refers to it, and look at who can lead this country back to its superior position in the world.
Yeah, and that's going to take some new thinking.
You're right.
It is.
The thing is, Ross, in the past it's all been Republican versus Democrat, but you know what? Right now it's the establishment versus the people. The old boundaries, the old definitions of Republican and Democrat have been so blurred, so distorted, that we can't really see what's going on. I'll give you an example. Back Thursday, we had a former presidential candidate in Mitt Romney go to the microphones and condemn a current candidate for the very same reasons that he was condemned when he ran as a president. That sort of thing is, I don't know what the reaction's going to be, but what it tells me is that there is a schism, a split, a vast divide in the Republican Party. Mitt Romney, in my opinion, Mitt Romney sounded more like a Democrat on Thursday than he did a Republican.
Are you talking about Harry Reid?
No, Mitt Romney.
No, he sounded like...
Oh, he sounded like Harry Reid in the tax. Yeah, Harry Reid asked him when he was running for president to release his taxes. Now he's doing the same thing to a fellow Republican. Does that make any sense, Ross?
Yes, it does, unfortunately.
It does?
It does. Remember in the 2012 election, at the very end, the Republican candidate rolled over. Those are my words. Right? Why? Because he was told to. The same people that told him to roll over are telling him what to say today.
We'll agree with you on that.
Well, and that just demonstrates the fact that the old boy network that we used to talk about really never was conservative to begin with. They were all about power and money.
Egotistical maniacs.
Well, maybe that's part of it too. But the point is that we see now people are looking for answers, and they're going to the one person that they think can provide the answers, and the Republican Party is going apoplectic, going ballistic, because they don't want that to happen. So they are attacking the front-running Republican candidate as though they were Democrats, and saying the very same things. Be afraid of this man. I don't know where you stand politically on this particular subject, Ross and Doug. And I'm not going to tell you who to vote for, you folks out there. I'm just going to tell you the old Republican and Democrat lines have been blurred and distorted so badly that now you're going to have to make your decision on the basis of what the man is going to do in office. And that's the important consideration.
But Tony, he can't do anything. The Republicans can't do anything unless they can actually beat Hillary Clinton. So we got Republicans right now that's trashing Republicans. And what's at stake?
The presidency of the United States.
That's more than that.
Our future.
The future of the United States of America.
Look at the number of Supreme Court justices.
Yeah.
Look at that. They can't do anything. But when they take and use a Republican who seems like he turned tail and ran and is bad-mouthing somebody that can possibly win.
Yeah, it's all about
it's
all about winning, Doug.
It's that's it.
If you look at the I don't care how wonderful a conservative a candidate may be, if he's not electable, what's the point in supporting him? Now you have to look at what's happening nationally. We just went through the Super Tuesday, and who swept all but 2 states?
Donald Trump.
Yeah. That says to me that there's a lot of people out there. In fact, I heard one statistic that said something like 20,000 Democrats in one state had re-registered, changed their registration from Democrat to Republican.
I saw the same thing.
Nobody has done that since Ronald Reagan. This guy has the potential. Is he the greatest candidate to come down the road? Maybe not, but he certainly knows how to win the votes.
And that's what we have to do in order to save our country.
Yeah,
is to win the vote.
We've got to win this next election. That's what I was talking about with this on the edge of the precipice business. We've got to think of ways to win. We can't simply stand on principle. As important as principle is, we've got to get a leg up. We've got to put a man in the presidency that will at least move the way that we want to move, or at least do some of it. You don't win these battles overnight. So we really are looking at a whole new playing field. The rules have changed. To compare it to a football game, nobody's calling the downs, nobody's advancing the ball. They're huddling and the whistles are blowing, and it's just the game. The field is just a mass of confusion.
Well, let's look at what will happen should we continue on the current path.
Okay.
Socialism will take over. There will no longer be the great United States of America. It will be the society of America, much akin to what happened to the USSR not too long ago. Remember when Reagan was president, the USSR failed.
Yeah. I remember reading a piece not long ago that pointed out that the 2 great powers that faced off during the Cold War were both headed down the very same road. The Soviet Union collapsed almost immediately because the communist or socialist system was so very weak. The United States is collapsing. It's taken longer because we had a stronger economy and we had at least a moral majority at one time. I think that moral majority is waking up. I think they're coming back to life. I had written them off. I thought the patient was dead.
Well, to paraphrase what Adams said, John Adams in 1770s predicted this very same situation.
Yeah.
With the apathy of the voter, the country will fail.
So I think it's very interesting that the 2 superpowers are now headed down the very same path. And that's intellectually it's curious, but on a personal level, it's very not just disappointing.
It's devastating.
Yeah, exactly. That's the word, devastating. So the agenda, I think, gentlemen, is an effort to take away the rights and the power from the people in the elites that are in both parties. I don't think they're necessarily in collusion. I think each one wants to defeat the other, but they don't see the country's in trouble. They think this is just business as usual, and they want to retain their power. So the question is taking away the rights and the power from the people.
Well, that leads into an issue that's very fond to me, and that's the state of California. Today, our legislature, our assembly in Sacramento, is looking at 7 bills that will remove or abrogate the Second Amendment.
Are you talking about Governor Moonbeam again?
It hasn't gotten to Governor Moonbeam yet. It's still in the hands of our assemblyman.
Oh, he'll sign it if it gets to him.
He'll sign it. There's no doubt about it. But also, our assembly is talking about shutting down the First Amendment, the right to free speech, and in this case, the right to encrypt messages on your cell phone. They would like to pass a bill saying it is illegal to encrypt a message on your cell phone.
These are people that don't understand the Constitution. When it says these rights shall not be infringed, they're all about infringing everywhere at every turn.
What disturbs me most, Anthony, is they, just like you and I and Doug, have sworn to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America.
Yeah.
They swore to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America, and yet they stand there in office and try to change it.
I think that there's an old aphorism for that. It's called a wolf in sheep's clothing.
I agree. I think it's worse than a wolf. It's a whole flock of wolves.
Well, there's a big old sheep right there.
No, don't expect me to make any of those noises. I'm sorry. Anyway, so how do we solve it? Well, we do exactly what the whole system requires. You know, I read somebody online the other day, so I'm not going to vote in this election. You know, that's a sure way to make sure that we lose our rights.
That's right.
There are two rights guaranteed to us, each of us individually in the Constitution. One is the right to vote, and the other is to participate in jury duty. And Americans have come to see jury duty as so onerous that they'll do anything to get out of jury duty. But the reason that jury duty is important is because if someone comes up, some honest citizen is being charged falsely by some tyrannical part of the government, and they're being charged improperly, then it is the right and the duty of those jury members to vote not guilty. It's called jury nullification.
Jury nullification gets into a deeper subject.
Well, and
but the point remains that we have an obligation in defense of our sovereignty to do our job as a jurist when we're called.
Jury duty and voting. And when this woman said, "I'm not going to vote," I wrote back and I told her, "That's appalling. What you're doing is abdicating the rights that men died and shed blood for so that you could have. So you're not going to make any decision because it's too confusing to you." Well, I feel really sorry for people like that because they deserve, if this thing goes south, they deserve that because they haven't got the gumption and the brains and the time to find out what's right and what's wrong and vote properly. But what we're seeing, I think, is a groundswell. You know, do you remember the idea of a moral majority, Ross?
Very well.
How about you, Doug?
Oh, yeah.
What was the moral majority?
The moral majority were American citizens who realized their obligation to their country.
And we could depend on those citizens, because there were more of them than the dummies that don't care.
Right.
But in recent years, with the drift into the libertarian or progressive systems that we've seen come into our government, it started to look to me like we no longer had a moral majority. We had a moral minority. But that moral minority or majority, whatever it might be, is speaking up now. And I'm encouraged by that, because they're recognizing something is wrong, and they know their candidate isn't perfect, but they know that this is their one chance to pull the fat out of the fire, to move away from the edge, to not go over the edge. And that's what's important.
Well, you know, Tony, you mentioned something earlier in the program about that was on the television, and people were registering, Democrats were registering as Republicans,
Yep,
so they could vote.
So they could vote in the primary.
There's an answer for that.
Sure.
Over the last yumpteen years, we've had Democrats lie to the people. Over the last yumpteen years, we've had Republicans lie to their constituents.
Exactly.
And so people say, oh, yeah, when I get to Congress, we're going to have this, and it's never going to happen again. You ever heard of that word? It ain't going to never happen again. It's out there all the time. They can't trust the Republican Party, the old one. They can't trust the old Democrats. So here comes a man right up through the middle. His name is Trump. He may not be exactly what everybody wants, but he is got a record, and he is willing to put his name out there on that. And now it's embarrassing for the old Republicans, and now it's embarrassing for the old Democrats. So now they're all joining in, and I hope that we can get a conservative person in there.
Well,
But
you know what?
go
Doug?
ahead, Tony.
Yeah, he's demonstrated an ability to win, and right now
We need somebody that can
we
win.
need somebody that can win. If we don't win this election, we're going over the edge, folks.
There goes your belt buckle. Yeah. See him down there, Ross? He just bounced off the bottom.
Well, not very high either.
We can never say it strongly enough. This is the turning point in the history of the United States of America.
Yeah.
And as a veteran, I feel that it would be a sin to degrade all those who have served their country and shed their blood and shed their life for the United States of America, to see this country go to waste.
Why would you want to talk about Harry Reid and Hillary Clinton? Them two people are about as, yeah. Let's
Well,
not,
I'm sure they're lovely people.
they are lovely.
I don't think so.
I don't either.
Well, I personally have no use for a socialist.
Yeah.
You don't?
No,
Oh, I like you.
thank you.
Well, we are at the edge, folks. And before we can make any changes, we have to get our man in office. If we can't push through this election, if we can't beat the socialist, progressive, liberal view, then we've lost, because the complexion of our country is changing rapidly, and people don't understand really what's at stake. And that's what we're trying to do, is help you understand what's at stake here.
Doug, isn't it about time for a commercial?
Oh, you better believe it. You're listening to the Voice of Freedom Radio. Our programs can be heard here every Saturday at 12 noon.
Or you can go to our website and listen to all of our programs anytime at thevoiceoffreedomradio.com. That's thevoiceoffreedomradio.com.
Where you can see basically
All the issues that we presented, particularly
BLM
the BLM movement.
charges against the Harmons up there.
Hammonds.
Hammonds.
Yep. We've got tons of information
And,
on there.
And you can see on that our website, thevoiceoffreedomradio.com, you can look on there and see where the BLM, about 60 days after the Hammonds were sentenced on a terrorist charge, you can see the BLM starting fires up there in Harney County, just north of French Glen, and where they started that one fire, and one fire killed over 80 head of cattle. And
Well, Doug, more importantly, there is currently a movement by our federal government, and particularly BLM, Bureau of Land Management, to isolate state lands, private lands, and turn them into government property. Well, their definition of government property is not what the Constitution intended.
I got a story about that if you want to hear it.
I do.
Okay,
Tony, I'd like to hear that story.
Okay, good. And there's somebody doing something about it.
That's great.
Yep, his a rancher by the name of Stanton Gleave in a little county in the state of Utah is tired of being pushed around by the BLM. They've been taking his grazing rights away from him. It's a small county, only 2 or 3 families in the whole county, but or large families. So a lot of them have the same last name. Like, for example,
Yes.
the Paiute County Sheriff has the last name Gleave. Marty Gleave, the Paiute County Sheriff, spoke before a caucus on the 12th of February in Utah, and he warned BLM against moving against his uncle and anyone else, any other rancher or individual in his county. And this is what he said, and I love this. He said, "I'll deputize every man, woman, and child in the county to stop what's going on."
Did you hear that, folks? The sheriff can do that. The sheriff has the constitutional powers in the counties. That's in California.
That's in every state in the nation.
Yeah.
He can do that, see? But there's some people in this county, in Modoc, that don't believe that. Why don't you ask the local newspaper man? He'll tell you about how the Hammonds are all a bunch of idiots and the Bundys. He won't put out the truth.
We have to look at what's happening to the cattlemen today. In every western state, the federal government is taking their grazing rights, their grazing lands away from the cattlemen.
Well, I got
Folks, I understand there are a lot of vegetarians out there, but there's still a lot of people like me that like red meat.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Go ahead, Tony. I had to break up his diet here.
I got another example of another sheriff that's standing up for the rights of the people. Sheriff Brad Rogers in Elkhart County, Indiana. He stopped the FDA and the Department of Justice cold in their tracks. I won't explain all the details, but here's what he said that I think is important, that our local sheriff and all the sheriffs in the northern counties in California should pay attention to. He said, and I quote, "Your local elected officials can stem the tide of federal overreach if they apply just a little backbone in supporting and defending the Constitution. Expect it, demand it."
You're right, Anthony. And right here in Northern California, I'd want to make the names of 3 sheriffs. Sheriff Agostini, Sheriff John Lope, Sheriff Mike Poindexter. When the people of Northern California wake up and see what these sheriffs are doing for them, instead of criticize them all the time, well, you'll find out who's really on our side here. And
They are constitutional sheriffs.
Sheriffs possess the most power in their home counties and are locally elected officials that can be a thorn in the side for the federal automatons that are hell-bent on the encroachment of freedom. This is what opined one newspaper article. Blocking the government overreach in this instance can set forth, and I would add any instance, can set forth an example for other sheriffs to rise up and stand strong for the people they serve. The ultimate solution of educating the populace on how to repel the tyranny can be accelerated with the continued support of these county officers, the sheriffs.
the sheriffs are the key to our whole success.
Well, the key, they need our support. They
do.
can't do it alone. We have to back them. What we see is on the local level is what's happening on the national level. Mm-hmm. We see an effort by the progressives and the liberals to undermine the authority of the sheriffs, to say, well, there's something wrong with our sheriff, or there's something wrong with this deputy or that deputy. Remember, people, the same thing is happening nationally. They're saying the same things about the leading Republican candidate. They're trying to pull the man down, and they're trying to pull down your local sheriff. And if you let it happen, you'll be next.
Well, don't lose sight of the fact that a constitutional sheriff is the only constitutionally authorized person to protect our rights to property and the pursuit of happiness.
But here's one thing I'd like to comment I'd like to make before we close this program out for this Saturday. We got a man that says that he's going to do something. His name is Trump. There's also a Republican that the old establishment don't like, and that's Cruz.
They don't like him because he really is a true conservative.
That's right. So if we could just get all of this bitterness out of people's soul and support, and maybe the fact is that Mr. Trump, if he wins this, that he's got a backup right in Cruz. And I think basically this is one thing, because people say, oh, we need Cruz, we need Cruz. Yes, we need Cruz because in Washington, they don't like him either.
That's right.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Well, you got anything else, Tony, you want to say?
Oh, I got lots, but we'll have to wait for next time. Hey, I'm loaded for bear. When I heard Romney speak up last Thursday, I was appalled, and I hope that you folks will understand how important it is that we close ranks behind a winner. Maybe Trump isn't your favorite candidate. I don't know where you stand politically, but he's the only one that has demonstrated the ability to garner the votes. And garnering votes is what an election is all about. Principle, it's important, but if you can live and die on principle, if you can't get your man in office, those principles are worthless. So,
Well, just one thing in closing, Anthony. Take a good look at who wrote the speech for Governor Romney. I suggest that it is establishment Republican, and that is not in the nation's best interest.
yeah, I think what you heard in that speech was the voice of fear. The establishment in the Republican Party is scared to death that Trump is going to take it, and they can't control Trump. They can't tell him what to do, and I think it has them on the verge of panic. And that's why they rolled Romney out there. Romney wouldn't even oppose Obama during the debates. He stood there and took it from Obama and never responded. This is not the way that you succeed. You succeed by standing up to the tyrants and calling a spade a spade. And telling things like they really are. Is Trump perfect? Probably not. But he knows how to get the votes. And any alternative that I see out there leads us down the wrong path. The only other alternative I see is another Democrat president, and that would be a disaster. That would be that would be like walking up to the rim of the North Canyon, folding our arms, closing our eyes, and then just tipping over the edge.
I don't think there's more to be said than what Anthony just spoke of. Folks, you have to get out and vote. Vote your heart, vote your conscience, vote.
Yeah.
Well, we had a good program, and I'm just waiting to hear that big thud at the bottom of that canyon. You think he's down there, Ross?
Don't worry, you'll hear it.
No,
Until next week at this very same time.
No, I'm hanging on tight.
You are?
I'm not going over the edge.
Push him, Ross. Shove it.
We need more people with his attitude.
Okay, until next week at this very same time, and you'll listen to the Voice of Freedom Radio Comical Hour. We will be back. We're not going away, even if the DA in Modoc wants us to go away. He says that one time. Yeah, they shut you down yet? I says,
We still have the First Amendment, folks.
That's right.
Thank God for that.
Until next week at this very same time, go to our website, thevoiceoffreedomradio.com, and see BLM breaking the rules and burning cattle alive by French Glen up in Harney County. Look at it and see them, folks. You can see it on our website. They're there. Ross, from the land that you love and the canyon that he's looking over.
And the God that created it.
The canyon.
The canyon among
other
everything.
things.
Good day, America.
Dun, 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 dun.
Dum, 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 dum.